So, good evening to everyone. I will turn into English, so sorry for that. First of all, I would like to thank you and thank you all of you for having me here and for giving us the opportunity to discuss about and share about our experience and discuss about what we are doing and what we have done so far in our country, and maybe share your experience about some lessons that we have learned already. So I will start the presentation with a general overview about our PPP life in Greece, so what we have achieved so far, and what are the future, the present, and the future plans. And then I will present a project that we have concluded with alongside with the BRD as regards the new Green Ferries PPP that we structured last year. So I will not focus on the first, let's say, slide, because I guess you all know what is a PPP. It's a long-term contract between a public and private party. The main point of this slide is that in Greece we follow two different paths, two different, let's say, paths of PPP schemes. The first one, which is the majority of our project, is the government pay project. It's social infrastructure. We speak about schools. We speak about student accommodation. We speak this type of project that they don't have a commercial, let's say, revenue to share with the investor. And of course, we have the other category. It's the user pay project. It's the concession ones. Right now, we have more or less the 20% of our portfolio is concession types, mainly broadband infrastructure networks and this type marinas and this type of projects that right now the private party reimburse their costs from the commercial exploitation of the asset. One of the major, factors of success, to be honest, for the Greek PPP life, I think that is the fact that the action that we did from the early beginning of the life in Greece. Back in 2005, we have ratified a specific law, the PPP law, that includes all the key characteristics and all the provisions that every single public authority must follow in order to have approve and implement a PPP project. So here you can see some major key characteristics. The first one is the clear approval process that we have. So it's a centralized process. So every single public authority, in order to have a PPP, they have to submit a proposal to us, to the PPP unit, and then this proposal must be approved by the interministerial committee. So without this procedure, they cannot have a PPP project, no one. So that's exactly what we wanted from the beginning, in order to have a specific unit, an experienced unit, in order to control and monitor all the PPPs in Greece. Secondly, of course, it's goes without saying that all the award procedures are clearly drafted in line with the European directives. We have a specified contractual framework and a minimum content of a PPP contract. So inside our law, you can see the minimum content that each PPP contract has in many sectors. We have already included in our law some fast-track provisions in order to have a quicker, let's say, method for authorizing the grants and the permits. And we have provision that includes, as I said before, both the availability payment project and the concession. The private sector, in the majority of our projects, is responsible to design, build, finance, and operate. So it is a DBFO project. And of course, we have provisions for dispute resolution by arbitration if needed. To be honest, we have right now 28 signed projects. We don't have many times that we had to go to the arbitration because we didn't have any disputes for the last years. This is, I think it's boring if you see without pictures, without numbers, without anything, but I think that this is one of the most important slides that each PPP unit at each country must have. Of course, we know one of our major actions back in our office is to find an attractive and huge portfolio and have projects and discuss projects with the public authorities. But on the same time, you have to you must have a fiscally sustainable and economic viable program. And this is something very vital for our occasion, for our case back in Greece. 15 years ago, we had this huge economic crisis, so we had to think more and more about the fiscal impact of this project, and this was one of our major actions that we did. Mainly, we had and we still have 4 specific pillars in order to ensure this affordability and this sustainability of the PPP tool. First of all, it is a budgetary control mechanism. As I said before, PPPs in Greece are led by a centralized PPP unit. We have the total control of all the projects that are run and implemented in the country. And of course, the interministerial committee is the relevant governmental body that take all the necessary decisions, which evaluate the fiscal impact and ensure that any public funding remains within the limits of what the country can afford. So this is the main part. The second part is a strategic action that we took 10 years ago, is to structure all of our contracts as off-balance sheet. If you know about statistical classification, every single project has to be proposed and suggested to Eurostat and reported to Eurostat in order to let them know about this risk sharing and if this is on or off balance sheet. So what does this mean? Projects are designed so that key risks, construction, availability, and demand, and transfer to the private party. So this allows to keep this obligation of the government's balance sheet in line with the European statistical rules, meaning that they don't count toward the public debt and the public deficit. For Greece, all of our projects, so 28 projects right now, we have classified them as off-balance. So none of them are, they don't count towards our public deficit, and this was really crucial over the last years because 10 years ago we had to cut wages and pensions in order to lower our debt. So imagine if we had this problem as well. The third pillar that we took in order to ensure this affordability and this sustainability of PPPs was to issue a cap on the government availability payments over the next 35 years. So we have a specific cap for every year till 2055 that we cannot exceed. So that's what we have already structured this portfolio, having in mind that we cannot exceed per year 0.25 of our GDP for the last year, of the last year. So this is something that we took as a governmental decision in order to introduce a specific cap in order to help and safeguard the financial sustainability of this tool. It's a review based on the state of the national economy, and the PPP unit is responsible for monitoring across all the projects. So what does this mean? If we have, right now we are more or less, we're clearly close to this cap, so we have to standard to prioritize about the project that we may have in our future plans. But right now we are exactly the safeguard of this exercise. And the third pillar, which is I think the most important, is the strategic use that we did over the last years of EU structural funds, and of course support from the international financial institutions. We are one of the leading countries that many years ago we tried to use this blended finance, as we say. So we included EU grants inside the construction of the project, and supplementary to the private funds, we tried to sign the project and of course to overpass some difficulties that we had back in 2010 with this huge crisis. So Greek PPPs often involve, and right now it's more or less the case of every project, Greek PPPs often involve a mix of EU funding, IFI financing, contribution from Greek and international banks, as well as private capital from contractors. And this blended finance model helps reduce future liabilities while making the most of the resources available to the Greek state. So having this EU grant during the construction, you lower the availability, so you lower the money from the public funding. In this slide, you can see what we have achieved so far. All of our projects right now have a total development cost of around 3.5 billion euros. You speak about 28 right now. Over the next week, we will have another four. So 3.5 billion euros. Out of them, more than 600 million euros derives from the European Union, so from EU grants, and we have another 2.8 billion euros that comes from the private funds. If we split this, we have 2.8 as equity and long-term debt, and we have another 150 million euros that came from EIB, from the investor side, and of course another 50 million euros from a financial engineering instrument from the European Union that is called Jessica. So in parallel with all this, we try to structure a tender process that mainly has 2 or 3 characteristics: a solid, transparent, and competitive, let's say, basis. And this is the outcome of this effort. As you may have known that World Bank every year evaluates the countries as regards the transparency and the competitiveness and other factors of each country's, let's say, tender procedure. We, as Greece, we have already ranked 2nd worldwide in the field of procurement of PPPs, according to the last year's report, and we had exactly the same position 4 years ago with exactly the same rank. Furthermore, we have already ranked 2nd worldwide among 21 countries in the field of procurement of PPPs, according to another, let's say, international organization, which is the Global Infrastructure Hub. And I dare to say that our only goal is to go 1 rank higher. Slovakia is the #1 right now, so we hope over the next, let's say, report to gain the 1st place. Here you can see a digital map about our signed right now projects. You can see from the left to the right, we have 5 waste management projects right now that we have already concluded the construction, are under operational period. We have the 3 motorways right now without tolls, so fully availability payments in 3 areas, in the southwest Peloponnese, in Thessaloniki, in the co-capital, let's say, of Greece, and in the island of Crete. Both of them are over the last 2 years of the construction before going to the operation. We have a marina in Naflion. This is a concession type project. We have 2 ICT projects in Athens that has to do with the telematic system for the buses and the electronic fare collection system for the metro in the capital. We have 3 bundles of school buildings, the 2 ones in Attica, the 14 schools and the 10 schools. These 2 projects were signed back in 2014. So from 2016 till now are during operational period and are really, really important for our educational system. And last year we had the signing of another school bundle, so 17 school buildings in the region of Central Macedonia, and right now we're during the construction period, and we hope till the end of next year to have already finalized the construction for all these 17 schools. Furthermore, we have another project that has to do with 7 fire stations in different areas of Greece. The student accommodation project, a very important project in Greece, as you may see that in Crete there is a very touristic place that students cannot find an affordable housing in order to be there and do their studies. So what we did, we started 4 years ago with a tender in order to build the proper, let's say, accommodation buildings in 2 cities in Crete, in Heraklion and in Rethino, that will host more than something less than 5,000 students in these 2 cities. So we have already signed in contract, and we are over the first, let's say, semester of the construction, and we hope till the end of 2028 to have already concluded the construction and start the operation with the students. Another project is the digitalization of the community. It's a small one. The budget is below 10 million euros, but it was of great importance in order to start digitalizing our procedures in this sector. The Thessaloniki metro system, this was the only project that had not construction inside the scope, so it's an O&M project, operation and maintenance. The project was already constructed, and then we took the operational and maintenance of this specific, let's say, activity project. Last but not least, we have this concession type project that I told you before. So 6 right now. We have 6 ultra-fast broadband networks that right now we are finalizing all the necessary last, let's say, steps before concluding the construction, and we hope till the first Q of 2026 to be fully operational. So this is, plus, because it's not in this slide, we signed 2 months ago the first irrigation project, the 3 irrigation project in Greece. So a very important project in order to upgrade our activities and our infrastructure in this sector. As you can see, we had a very rapid growth over the last 3 years in Greece. So out of these 28 that I told you before, 14 were signed over the last 3 years. You can see them, the 3 road infrastructure contracts that we had, the 3 broadband contracts, 1 metro in Thessaloniki, the marina, the school building bundle in Central Macedonia, 1 street lighting project in the region of Epirus, in municipality, the student accommodation contract in Crete, and the 3 irrigation contracts that we signed 2 months ago and had, if I remember correctly, a total development cost of around €500 million. So this is what we did, but we don't stay on that. We try to make our future steps, and this is the project that we have already approved by the Interministerial Committee, and we are in different stages of tender procedure. You can see the categories. We have another 1 ultra-fast broadband project. We have 3 road project plus 2 road project plus 1 rail. The 2 projects, yesterday we had the submission of the binding bids with 3 bidders for each project, so we are in the last steps before awarding the preferred bidder. The rail project right now, we are trying to, to discuss with the relevant ministry, the Minister of Infrastructure and Transport, in order to start, let's say, drafting the tender documents and start the A phase of this process. Apart from the student accommodation project in Crete, we have another 5 projects in this specific sector. 2 of them, we have already concluded all the tender procurement, and we are during the finalization of the documents before signing the contract, and another 3 were in the binding bids phase. Another 1, street lighting project, 7 waste management projects. This is a hot sector in Greece. It's the prevailing method that we implement the project. With these 7, and if you remember, another 5 that are already signed, we have 12 waste management projects in total that we right now we're implementing in the country. 3 coal building projects, 3 water infrastructure. This has to do with potable water in 3 areas in Greece. Another 3 bundles of school buildings, 4 governmental and public sector accommodation projects. The first hospital, the first healthcare infrastructure that right now we started the tender. It has to do with an oncological hospital in Thessaloniki, and we started the tender procedures last week. And of course, we have another 2 police stations and 2 correction facility projects in the country, plus 2 irrigation that counts 35 with a total development cost of around €5.5 billion. Very briefly, some categories about what I said you before. Education infrastructure PPPs, we have all the sector counts €775 million as development costs, 6 student accommodation projects, and another 3 school buildings in 3 regions of Greece, in Crete, in South Aegean, and Western Macedonia. The waste and water sector, this is a hot sector as well, because right now we have more than 15 PPP projects that are during the tender process. 7 has to do with the waste management, and another 8 has to do with the water management. So the water management are the regions of Thessaly, Eastern Macedonia, and Thrace, Peloponnese, Ionian Islands, and in Crete. Very, very important project in order to solve and cope with all these, climate change problems that we have right now. The government buildings PPPs, okay, it's 9 projects with total development cost of around €1.5 billion. Court buildings, governmental park, that is a very emblematic project in Greece that in a single site they will going to host more than 9 ministries. This is during the last phase of the tender. Some other premises of the Ministry of Infrastructure, other public buildings, police stations, and correction facilities project. This is the 3 projects in the transport sector that I told you before, the 2 road project and the 1 rail that is in northern Greece. And this is the case study that I would like to present you. It's a very innovative project that we tried alongside the BRD in order to finalize all the necessary, let's say, exercises and have a pre-feasibility study in order to be approved by the ministers, by the ministerial committee. What's the scope of the project? You know, in Greece, the geomorphology is really difficult because we have many islands. We have more than 2,000 islands, and more than 200 are already populated. Of these populated islands, we have many that are remote, so they don't have any other alternative, and they don't have the commercial, let's say, interest from the private sector in order to have vessels and go there. So what we do is we subsidy the private partner in order to do all these activities and have this sea transportation all over the year. But we have some problems, and this is the current challenge that we have to address. What is the problem of this? We have an insecurity concerning the adequacy of regular maritime services from the remote islands, island residents. So we have a lack of reliable and regular interconnection of the islands of the bar and ferry lines network. We have a lack of alternatives in transportation. This is the only way to go there. We don't have planes, we don't have anything else. It's only this type of transportation. We have annual bids and contracts per ferry line. That's why I told you before that we subsidy this specific activity. But you can imagine that over 200 lines to have 200 tenders per year in order to solve this problem. So it's really very difficult. And of course, we have a reduced level of redundancy and reliability. What we try to achieve with this project is to have a reliable transportation service for remote island resident and to normalize and further upgrade an essential public service. The second challenge that we have to address is that the existing fleet and all the vessels use exclusively fossil fuels. And this, you can only imagine that they have negative effects on atmospheric pollution. We have severe adverse impacts on environmentally sensitive areas in the event of a spill. And of course, we need to comply with the applicable regulation of the greening of the fleet. With this project, we are trying to green this maritime transportation with some new vessels that are greener, of course, greener than the existing ones. And the last challenge that we have to address is that the existing fleet is really aged. So more than half of the Greek ferry fleet reaches its operational lifetime span. So without long-term contracts, the line operators are not motivated to invest in new vessels. So that's why we're going to implement this as a PPP and have this motivation and have better vessels for these islands. So the project goal for this, I think that with this fleet renewal, we are trying to collaborate with the private sector to invest in new green vessels, enable the provision of long-term contracts, and of course, increase the safety of maritime transport. Here you can see the project perimeter that we structure. On your left side, you can see the current situation. So as regards the vessels, there is a variation of vessel designs and types, many types in many islands. Old vessels, most of them are near to their lifetime span. 34% are older than 30 years and 52% are older than 20 years. The operators are many different operators, local operators with restriction on funding leverage, so that's why they are not doing a renewal on their fleet. The vessel operated exclusively with fossil fuel, and that's why we're trying to go to the next step and go to the next phase in order to greening all this initiative, all this sector. Of course, we have to do another parallel streams because our ports does not have the necessary infrastructure, so we don't have grid in many of our remote ports. So we have, in parallel, to upgrade the port infrastructure and can accommodate all the needs that from these green ferries. And of course, the state contribution barren lines are not adequately served by the markets. Therefore, there is a financial support by the Greek state, and every year a relevant tender is launched specifying the criteria. So this is the existing and the current situation, and after the implementation of this project, of course, we will have the provision of modern type of vessels. We have, let's say, standardized the vessel types, and we have specific lead vessels. We have state-owned vessels, so we, as a state, will be the ship owners, and all the private party will be the operator of this, let's say, activity. We'll have deployment of green fuels, including offshore power supply, infrastructure at ports. This is what we are going to do. And we leverage the production and logistics of green fuels in Europe and Greece. And last but not least, we will have a long-term solution and secure of state funding in long term, and EU and private sector funding leverage. As I said before, we have already included specific EU grants. If I remember correctly, it's 150 million euros that are available in order to use them inside this project and co-fund the construction of the vessels. So why a PPP, to be honest? And this is something that we had many discussions with the relevant Minister of Maritime in order to convince him about the necessity of starting as a PPP this initiative. So first of all, the construction cost and the operation costs, they are really huge, to be honest. So the renewal of the fleet combined with the deployment of green ferries is really expensive. So the investors should be motivated with a level of secure return, while the Greek state will impose operation and maintenance requirements in order to have a performance-based incentives. The second one is the social impact. So, residents of the remote islands are greatly affected, as the sea transportation has a vital role in their life. The transportation quality and safety is enhanced, and the connectivity is also ensured in the long run. The private party will ensure high-level services through KPIs motivation. And the last, let's say, pillar and the last reason is the lack of commerciality. As I said before, this is a barren line. It's a remote island, so the commercial, revenues are not enough in order to have a project and renew our fleet. So that's why we structure this project as a PPP project in order to have long-term, let's say, provisions of high-quality services under an agreed payment mechanism that would take and make this project attractive to the market. Some benefits from the implementation of the project, socially wise, you can meet all the transportation needs of these residents in these remote islands. We can create, of course, new jobs with high expertise and specialization. We contribute to the renewal of the Greek coastal shipping fleet, and of course we upgrade in parallel the port facilities. As regards the environmental sector, we reduce, of course, the ship-related emissions, including CO2. The project is totally aligned with the Greek state, with the EU commitments, and of course leveraging the green fuel used within the broader context of the maritime industry. And last but not least, the economic, let's say, factor, leveraging the European and Hellenic shipbuilding ecosystem to advance the construction of green vessels, enhancing competitiveness with leading shipbuilding nations. And we enhance economic and industrial activities for the production and supply of the selected green fuels. Three pillars as regards the technical parameter of this initiative that we are trying to approve. The first one has to do with the ferry lines. So the assessment of ferry lines is based on a multi-parametric evaluation, considering criteria related to the lines, such as port characteristics, route distance, number of trips that each vessel does, interregional trips, and seasonability, so aiming to evaluate the maturity of each line. The second pillar that we try to start standardizing is the lead vessels, so the definition of lead vessels, focusing on standardizing the types by harmonizing principal characteristics such as the length, the passenger, and the vehicle capacity and speed, aiming to improve the operational efficiency across the ferry lines. And the last parameter was the fuel pathway, the most important, which was the assessment of the fuel pathway that was based on a multi-parameter evaluation, considering criteria relating to the fuels. For example, fuel cost, energy density, emissions, availability, and related to other technical solution. Let's go from the beginning. This is the ferry lines. We try to structure this in regions, the Ionian Islands, the Northeast Aegean, the Cyclades, and the Crete and others, plus Dodecanese. We try to structure in total, if I remember correctly, is 44, something like that, so 44 lines that was split in these specific areas. The lead vessels parameter that we told before, this is exactly the objectives, is the criteria that we took under consideration: the vessel length, the passenger capacity during winter and summer, and some garage area for the vehicles. The project goal was to standardize these vessels operating in barren lines, and of course improve the vessel's utilization factor. And the benefits, of course, we can understand: reduce construction cost and time, improve European and Greek building technical know-how, and operational maintenance and repair effectiveness. This proposal counts, if I may, it's 9, let's say, types. It's 8, but the first one has two legs. From the very small ones for 25 meters, the passenger ferry plastic and steel, till the big ones with 100 meters that includes both passengers and vehicles, and of course two high-speed ferries in the Crete, let's say, region. So the total number of vessels that was examined was 35 in order to accommodate all the needs of our remote islands, and the lines that they are going to serve is 44. Last but not least, the fuel pathway. So we tried to, to figure out about the fuel and about what we're going to do as regards this specific parameter. So we examine all the available and reliable fuel type that can be accommodate the needs of these vessels. You can see the fuel categories. It's biofuels, it's e-fuels, and electricity. Electricity is not so simple because the length and the destination is not so close. So we had to think mainly for biofuels, and of course we had some other, let's say, concerns about some selected, as you see on your right, the selected fuels were evaluated through a filtering process to exclude those presenting technical safety or economic challenges. So from this specific, let's say, exercise, we excluded e-diesel for specific reasons: high cost, energy intensive production process, and challenges for large scale adoption, and of course, e-ammonia and liquefied hydrogen that did not meet the safety standards that we have set. So we continue with all the other, let's say, available fuels, including biofuels, e-fuels, and electricity in some cases. What will be the PPP structure for this exercise that we did? You can see from to the left. From the left, you can see the main characteristics of this initiative. Throughout the term of the PPP contract, the ownership of the vessel shall remain to the state, so it's public, let's say, asset. The state support in the form of capital grant and availability payments. We are going to pay both in the construction period as with EU grants, and of course after with availability payments. We will ensure the existence of certain specifications for the social and environmental purpose of the project, and of course vessel servicing exclusively the selected barren lines. On the contrary, the private party will have some specific responsibilities. First of all, design and build. So we'll undertake the design and building of the vessel. The funding, they shall secure necessary financing through equity, sub-debt, and commercial loans. They will have to operate the vessels with obligation to hand back at the end of the PPP contract, and of course to maintain, to perform the proper maintenance of the vessel till the end of the duration of the contract. And this is a diagram that shows, all the connections between the stakeholders and the subcontractors. So you can see in the middle the SPV, it's the company, the private company that will sign a contract with a shipyard in order to construct these vessels, these new green vessels. Of course, there will be going to be a financier for providing the funding and, of course, getting the capital repayment, and the operator that will do the operation over the next 15 years, and, of course, having all this responsibility. As regards the Greek state, we are going to provide the state financial contribution during the construction and the availability payments, and the sponsors, which is the private party, that will provide equities update and know-how in order to start this initiative from the beginning. So this is more or less what we have done so far and what is one of our future very innovative projects that we hope to approve it by the Ministerial Committee in the next months. Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ, Νίκος.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Pavisam īsumā latviešu mēlē īsts atstāsts. Tātad Grieķija soli pa solim ir izveidojusi savu PPP struktūru, ne tikai atsevišķs projekts, bet veselu sistēmu. Pieeja ir šāda. PPP nav vienkārši būvniecības līgums, tas ir ilgtermiņa sadarbības līgums, kur privātais partners ne tikai uzbūvē, bet arī finansē un uztur infrastruktūru. Savukārt valsts maksā par rezultātu, par to, lai objekts būtu pieejams un labi funkcionētu. Tātad samaksa par pakalpojumu nevis tikai par uzbūvētiem kvadrātmetriem vai citiem lielumiem. Pirmais ir fiskālā disciplīna, tātad viens no svarīgajiem principiem. Grieķijā ir noteikts kopējs limits, cik lielas saistības valsts drīkst uzņemties PPP pieejamības maksājuma veidā. Centrālā PPP vienība seko līdzi, lai katrs jaunais projekts šajos limitos ietilptu. Tas ļauj attīstīt PPP, vienlaikus saglabājot kontroli pār valsts finanšu ilgtermiņa saistībām un neuzkrājot slēpto parādu. Otrais princips – gudra risku sadale un Eiropas Savienības fondu izmantošana. Grieķija plaši kombinē Eiropas Savienības fondu naudu ar Eiropas Investīciju bankas un Komercbanku aizdevumiem, kā arī privāto finansējumu. Būvniecības un pieejamības riski pārsvarā ir privātajiem partneriem, tāpēc daļu projektu var uzskatīt par ārpus valsts parāda saistībām, bet infrastruktūra reāli tiek uzbūvēta: ceļi, skolas, apgaismojums, ūdens saimniecība, atkrituma apsaimniekošana. Piemērs, kas tika demonstrēts Green Ferries projekts, jeb Zaļo prāmju programma, tur PPP tiek izmantots, lai modernizētu prāmju floti, ieviestu energoefektīvākus un klimatam draudzīgākus kuģus. Šo piemēru noteikti aicinām studēt vēl padziļināti, jo tas tika plaši izklāstīts un, kā jau esmu minējis vairāk kārt, prezentācijas ir pieejamas jau CFLA mājaslapā. Bet kopumā Grieķijas PPP sistēma šobrīd tiek vērtēta kā viena no labākajām pasaulē. To atzīst gan Pasaules banka, gan G20 infrastruktūras eksperti. Galvenais secinājums, lai PPP strādātu, vajag stipru centrālo PPP vienību, skaidrus fiskālos griestus un mērķtiecīgu Eiropas Savienības fondu apvienošanu ar privāto finansu.